If you're shooting photos in the Canon R5, be prepared because the latest update from Adobe Lightroom finally lets your camera be all it wants to be. One of the funnest things I've experienced owning a Canon R5 since 2020 has been just the endless string of updates that come around that continue to upgrade this camera from what it was. I feel like every couple months something happens and it just unlocks a little bit more on the camera. And this has been a really fun aspect of the Canon R5. Now the update I want to talk about today has nothing to do with Canon whatsoever. It actually has everything to do with Adobe. And if you're an Adobe Lightroom user and you're using a Canon R5, the latest update from Adobe Lightroom completely, finally gives us one of the single most requested features in Adobe Lightroom. We finally have color matching profiles for our camera on the Canon R5 in Adobe Lightroom. And what I want to do is take you in the computer and show you why that's such an awesome thing for you and your Canon R5. So let's go ahead, take a look, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so here we are in front of the computer, and now I feel like it's a great time to talk about exactly why I'm so excited about this update for Adobe Lightroom. And it really comes down to this. They finally have camera matching color profiles for the Canon R5. And actually more specifically, it's for the Canon R3, the R5, the R6, and the 1DX Mark III. So there's a long list of cameras there, if you're a Canon shooter, that now have camera matching profiles in Adobe Lightroom. And this is actually really awesome because before, if you wanted to do it, you had to get, the best one I found is one called Color Fidelity. That really did a pretty good job of matching up, but you could never really get what you actually saw on the camera. And that could be very frustrating for you if you're a shooter, not being able to basically pull as much color information as you want to get, as you can see in your camera. You want to be able to get out of that computer, and now you can. So let's go ahead and take a look and see exactly how this works and let you see the differences. Now, the first thing you can see here, I started off with just a really basic landscape photo. I have intentionally tried not to do too much color correction on it. This is just a real basic thing. But I want you to see the difference that a color profile can do. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, if you come here, if you look in the top corner, you'll see it says profile and it says camera faithful. That's what I have it now. But if you click on this, it'll take you to another screen and you will see different options. And you can kind of go over and preview. And you'll see the basic one is Adobe RAW, which was the default one in Adobe if it can't find your camera. Now we have camera matching. And then you can have other ones you want on there, like I have color fidelity, there's color fidelity. Now I'm going to go ahead and collapse this real quick just to kind of make this a little more sense. And I'm going to come back up to camera matching. Now the great thing about camera matching, this is kind of like getting the colors in your camera. You can set those profiles in your camera. You can kind of do it here. So as you can see here, I have a landscape photo. I'm setting it to faithful for this test, but you can see faithful, you can see the difference when I put it on landscape. It just makes the colors a little more saturated, pops them up. Portrait, you can see that it focuses more on the reds in the tone. Neutral, which gets things as flat as you can get them. And then you kind of have standard, which is sort of a good middle ground. I like faithful. It tends to be, for me personally, closest to what I imagine the colors being. And that's where I like to start off, is Adobe Neutral. But what I want to show you now is look at the difference here between this and Adobe Camera Raw. And before we had the color matching that came out in October 2021, we had to use Adobe RAW. And if you look here, look at the difference there in Adobe RAW. And what I have here is I basically have Adobe Standard, which is the closest one to neutral on the Canon R5 that I could find. And you can immediately see as I click between these, look at the difference in saturation, in blacks, and in color that you get there. It's much more muted, and it's just kind of a nightmare to work with as a starting off point. I always found that to be a really frustrating thing when I was doing color correction with the Canon R5 in Adobe Lightroom. And for those of you that are wondering, I'm going to pull up here, this is the Adobe camera, and then this is what color fidelity looks like. And you can see once again, color fidelity is much more true to what I got, but there is still a marked difference in the saturation and especially in the contrast. And if I hold these two side by side, you can really see side by side the difference between this is the Canon and this is the Adobe. You can see just how much more desaturated that is. And then if I were to click on color fidelity, you can once again see Adobe Lightroom shows me a completely different look for Canon camera matching versus the color fidelity. So I just think that's a really huge thing that makes a big difference, especially in landscape. So once again, you can see just giant differences between these, in my opinion, that make big differences once you get further into it. The other area that I think you'll really see this in is skin tone. So I have a picture here of my son on Halloween looking cute as a robot. And as you can see here, I'm going to come back to my develop module just so you can see it. As you can see here, I have it set to camera faithful. And now when I go back to Adobe Standard, look at the difference between these two pictures. You can immediately see the saturation and the contrast difference in those colors. And even if I come back here to camera faithful and then click on color fidelity, you can see the color differences too. There's a contrast difference and there's a bit of difference in the colors. And what I'll do is I'll come here just to really emphasize this difference. I'll compare these two and I'm going to zoom in. And you can really see, just like looking at the blues here, look at the blues and the oranges and the pants, massively different. And then look at the skin tones here. If you look at the skin tones, you see there's a much more magenta tone here in the camera. And the Adobe Standard makes it a little more green than what you get from the Canon. And Canons tend to be a little bit more magenta. So there's no doubt that the picture that I took is much, much closer here to the camera matching that I got in the Canon R5. So anyway, guys, that's basically what I have to say. And really, this is one of those things that will make a huge difference, especially if you are getting paid to do your photography, because you can start off right from the bat and know instantly that however many photos you take, they're instantly starting with a much, much stronger base. It makes it faster for you to work out there and just get the pictures done faster. I just got done from a job where I downloaded this and was amazed that when I popped in Lightroom, how much further along I was in my photos before I even started doing the color correction, because I had finally a camera matching profile in Adobe Lightroom. So if you are a Canon R5 shooter and you are doing photography, update to this latest version of Adobe Lightroom. It is amazing in so many other ways, but really, the camera matching profiles for R5s, R6, R3s, and the 1D Mark III will really, really unlock just a huge amount of what your camera information is there that you already have in the picture, and now you can access it here in Adobe Lightroom. Anyway, guys, I hope that helped. Please leave me any questions or comments if you have anything down below. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, guys, go out there, keep on shooting, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.